You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans that just love talking about the Pack. We're not getting into all the national sports media talking points and headlines and nonsense and all that crap. We are talking about the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season and sorting through all the drama and the draft and the rumors of the offseason. If y'all want to support the podcast, please spike that like button for us. Give us a follow on all those socials. And most importantly, please venture on over to the Packers Talk YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button for us, little bell next to it for bonus points. Really appreciate that. And we certainly love all of our listeners and subscribers. Thanks y'all for joining us. This evening, we have got an ugly ending to diagnose here. We get to go through this Eagles game. We're gonna vent some feels here, and we're gonna talk about it. But first, of course, before we get started, a few words about our sponsor, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans. You can find them on the web at The Ticket King, or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee for direct links to specific Packers game tickets. Go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. All right, Timmy. I'm sorry. I've never called you Timmy before. I don't even know why I just did that.
Fine.
Jeez, man. I'm just not feeling good after this.
How could you feel good?
From play one, man? I've got a bad taste in my mouth right now because we got to talk about it. Yeah, I mean, the opening play said it all. If you believe in foreshadowing, I think foreshadowing definitely happens in life in a lot of ways, certainly in stories. And that play to open the game was a foreshadow of the game. Of course, the Packers are going to have enough of a lack of focus to fumble the ball. They recover it, and the refs, as usual, come in and make a mistake. So it's like, if you're not beating yourself, you're getting beat by somebody else. And then at some point, a better football team also has something to say about it. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I'm exhausted from this. And, my whole takeaway about this was a complete failure of leadership. I know it gets real easy to start getting into the team building conversation. Oh, if we had this guy, if we had that guy, if we upgrade this position, we upgrade that position. Sure. Right. Fair enough. Right. Like if you have T. Higgins, if you have Myles Garrett, if you have, insert playmaker, Max Crosby, Devontae Adams, all these guys, we would have won the Super Bowl. Right. And it's just the thing that gets so tired about that to me is it's a game of whack-a-mole that you will never win. And the worst part about it is the conversation involves amnesia. Like we forget, we don't have enough weapons. Well, for a long time, the Packers had the best receiver in the league. And we don't have enough good enough defense. All right, well, now we've got a good enough defense, so we don't have enough weapons. I'm sick of that conversation. I'm really sick of that conversation. We don't have a running back. Well, now we got a running back. We don't have a good quarterback. Well, we had a good quarterback before. Now, it's like all these things that people want to tell you that you need to win a Super Bowl. Well, the Packers have had those things. You know what failed? Leadership. Leadership failed. Like if you're really coming out in the first play of the game and you're not thinking clearly enough to protect the stinking ball, like just go down, dude. I know you got hits, a full speed game, helmet to helmet's part of the conversation too. I get it. All the conversations, all the talking points. I hear you. But at the same time, champions find a way to not fumble the ball on the opening snap, right? Like champions find a way to protect the ball. It's a hell of a thing. And to me, it comes down to mentality. I feel like what I really feel like, and I don't have, we try to keep things evidence-based, talk about objective things. What I really feel like is Matt LaFleur is too much of a friend to all these players. I'm really sick of that. Like, that's what this really feels like to me. You every week, you're talking about Oh man, we got to be better. Oh man, we got to be better. Yeah, well, you know what? We're watching you. We're all watching, and no, we're not all right. No, we're not all knowing. No, we're not all experts, but there's only a handful of things that you can do here. There's only a handful of responses you can have to these situations. I mean, the one that was a great example, and I think that maybe this problem definitely goes beyond the Eagles game. But when you talk about the Vikings, they came out with more man coverage than we expected. Then freaking adjust. Like, what do you mean? What a dumb comment that is. I like that to me insults the intelligence, the average reporter and fan. Oh, they came out in more man coverage. So you're telling me that all it takes to beat the Green Bay Packers is to run man coverage more than you expect? Really? How lame is that? That's just lame to me. And the reason that I bring that up is because the same attitude came out in this Philly game. The same attitude is what they played this game with, and it's just disgusting, man. It bothers me. I couldn't watch the game. I had it on. I was kind of listening to it in the background. After they did that, I just couldn't. I couldn't tune in because you could already see that the recipe was there for failure. I mean, they should have been down 40-0 at halftime. Like it was just a total failure of leadership. You could see it in the body language. You could see it in the decision making. Everybody wants to beat up Jordan Love right now because he wasn't very good. His play caller was atrocious. His play caller just sent him out there like an 8-year-old playing Madden, man. It was crazy. There was no concept building. There was no like trying to complement things. There was no acknowledgement that you've got one of the best running games in the NFL, and you should maybe force that defense to try to respect that with some play action and some deception. There was none of it was just infuriating. Like, man, we don't get like this very often. I'm kind of like blowing off some steam here, but a game like that, you really, it's disheartening, and it does make people want to say blow it all up. And I'm not going to say that because I think that's a ridiculous thing to say. This is a very talented team, but LaFleur has proven he's an excellent coach. I want to know who's holding this guy by the balls and telling him what to do. Like he completely failed the last 3 weeks of this season. Total failure on leadership. And I don't know, man. What do you think? I got to take a breath here, Tim. Am I overreacting? Is this an overreaction episode?
You got a lot to get off your chest. I mean, look, get it out. It's the end of the season. Just get it out, let it go. I hear you. I hear you with all that stuff. I'm a lot less upset than you are about this one. And I think it's just because, and I'm not criticizing. I'm not, we don't need to debate it, but I saw this coming along way off. And I think you were more optimistic that they could pull out of some of the struggles they were having, especially in the games against the Lions and the Vikings that they lost. And I give you credit for that. I was not as optimistic. So I'm not surprised by the way they performed. I mean, I think you could have taken the game against the Eagles and you could have just, instead of watching that game, you could have watched the 4 games they played against the Lions and the Vikings. It was the same thing. It was the same mistakes. It was the same slow start on offense. It was the same questionable preparation by the coaching staff and questionable play calling. So I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed on how things played out. And I think it goes back to something that you and I have talked about all year. Like, this team just lacked consistency and all over. It's not just the players, it's the coaching staff. And, early in the year, we were praising Matt LaFleur because he took a backup quarterback who he had for 2 weeks and was able to redesign the offense, redesign the running game as a coaching staff and win 2 games with Malik Willis, who hadn't been there. And we were praising what a good job, and this guy should be in a coach of the year conversation. And now everybody's questioning him. And I think some people are going way too far with, he should be on the hot seat and his job no. But there needs to be a lot of internal soul searching, on LaFleur's part. And I don't know who holds him accountable. I don't know how deep he's going to go with his evaluation of himself, how he prepares a team, because they are a mistake-prone team in these big games. They're a team that comes out and does some boneheaded things, some of the after-the-whistle penalties, and the continual slow starts on offense. He is the offensive designer, the offensive play caller. Everything on offense begins and ends with LaFleur. And it's a continued pattern in these games. It's one thing to go out there and beat up on the Saints or beat up on, the Jaguars. They didn't even really beat up on the Jaguars, but, some of the lesser teams that they beat this year. But to do it against the better teams that they faced, it's different. And we've seen them continually perform like they did on Sunday against the Eagles in those games this season. So, yeah, there's a lot of deep dives that have to be done from LaFleur's standpoint with his own preparation and how he gets his team ready to play in these games. And they do need help. They're not good enough. They're not on the Eagles level from a talent standpoint. They're not on the Lions level from a talent standpoint. They're not. They need help. That's going to have to come from player acquisition. But even with that, you should be able to perform better with the talent that they do have. And I think there's areas of this team that grew throughout the year, and the defense being one of them. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about Kenny Clark? And what about Rashawn Gary? Yeah, those guys had disappointing years, but the defense as a whole was a top 10 defense. And you can never say that within the last 3 years with Joe Barry. If you want to say this defense isn't better than they were, what games are you watching? They were a better defense.
Totally better.
They were
and had this team in a game they had no business being.
Had this team in a game, right? And you can't fault them. My only fault with the defense is the 2 times the Packers scored, the defense turned around and gave up scores on the ensuing drives. You can't do that. But I'm not here to ream them out. There was growth in the defense. We saw growth in the red zone offense. The first half of the year was atrocious. The second half of the year, they were banging in touchdowns pretty consistently. So the run game was much better this year. The best run game we've seen in a long time in Green Bay. Thank you, Josh Jacobs. But thank you for the way they've changed the run game. And that's LaFleur, that's Adam Stenavich, that's Luke Butkus, that's using your linemen, the design of the run game, the power schemes that they've run more with Josh Jacobs. But the other areas, namely the passing offense, that just completely fell apart at the end of the year. And before that was really inconsistent. I think we got to step back. We're talking now, it's the day after the game. It's still really fresh. The season's over. This was a young team. They were the second youngest team of all time to make the playoffs, or whatever it is, since the 70s. The youngest team was last year's Packers team.
Right.
They are still a really young team. I don't want to use that as an excuse because these guys have a lot of reps now and it's time to grow. It's time to step up. But they're still really young and inexperienced. They did win 2 more games. They did have a big improvement on defense. There are steps there. It doesn't always go in a straight line where you're just going to skyrocket through up through the universe and they're going to be a Super Bowl team right away. It's going to take time. And they're probably ahead of schedule from where they were before 2023.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we want more growth. We want to see more improvement. And there's a lot of questions to be answered. And there's a lot of room for improvement, both internally and externally. But you got to kind of keep it in perspective. This team's still building to that. Now, have high expectations. We got to, have those high expectations to hold the team accountable next year. But for what they are right now, it's disappointing, but it's also what they showed you that they were all season. And they continue to do that in this game. And it's frustrating that they have some of the continued mistakes. Very frustrating that they weren't able to clean those things up. So there's an accountability issue. And you got to figure out, we make all these mistakes. Why can't we fix them all? It's clear they get in these games, these quote unquote bigger games, and you continually do the same thing. So to me, the most disappointing part of this season and in the game against the Eagles was just the poor performance of the passing offense, starting with the game plan, the play calling, if you want to get into that. Jordan Love, he was not good on Sunday. And I know it's not just on him. It's on LaFleur. It's on his receivers. He was losing guys, especially in the second half. There was nobody to throw to. But your quarterback has to play better. Jalen Hurts didn't play a good game for the Eagles. Yeah. The difference was Jalen Hurts didn't turn the ball over. That was the only difference. He didn't play good. Jordan Love did. And I think the second part of the year, after he got healthy, or as healthy as he got, we still don't know if he was truly over the knee injury, over the groin injury. he did play better football, but there was still always, even in the games where they won convincingly, Dolphins, Niners, Saints, there were still those lulls in the game where you're like, can they just couldn't play a complete game. And then these bigger games, it was the slow starts. And it was because of the passing game. So Jordan Love's got to improve. And I don't think that's a knock on him. I think this is a typical of young quarterbacks. Not everybody's Patrick Mahomes where they're going to come in their second year and going to be MVP and set records and all that. Like, it takes guys time. Brett Favre, go back to Brett. His second year as a starter, it was really his first full season, but it was his second year. He threw 24 interceptions and they almost benched him. There were coaches on that staff that wanted him benched. Holmgren was the deciding voice and kept him. Aaron Rodgers, it took him to late his second season, 2009, where he really started figuring it out. More so 2010 with him. That was his third year. Like, it takes him time. Look at Josh Allen if you want a non-Packer. It took him a lot of time. These guys,
those first couple seasons were rough.
Right. Like, you can see guys come in and play well. Jaden Daniels is doing it. Jaden Daniels is going to go through some struggles next year. I guarantee it. He'll get through it, I think, because he's that good. But, it takes these guys time. They have to learn. And Jordan Love dealt with injuries. He dealt with teams that had a full offseason to study him and what him and the offense did well last season and figure out ways that they could counteract it. And I think there was inconsistencies and a lack of growth from his receivers. And he had some guys in and out of the lineup that hurt him. And I think he struggles with his fundamentals, starting with his footwork. And there's too many thrown off the back foot, fading away from throws. Like, that needs to be cleaned up. That's on him, and that's off-season work for him, his personal quarterback coach, when he comes back to Green Bay in April. That needs to be drilled into his head. And he needs to be held accountable for that. You can't just look at him and be like, he's the $200 million quarterback. He'll be okay. He still makes a lot of great plays. Like, no. He needs to have consistent fundamentals. That'll improve his game a lot. And I'm still really confident in what his future is. He had a poor game on Sunday, and I think he had an inconsistent season, but that's, in the big picture, it's not uncommon. So he's got to grow from it. It's frustrating, and it's the day after the game, so we're all pissed off, and it sucks because we're not going to get to see another Packers game, a real Packers game, until September. It's a long time, and we got a lot of things we can talk about between now and then, but just still have hope in this team. Like, they're growing. Let's hope this is the next step. Like, they had to go through these struggles to learn from them and build from them. And I really think that's what it is. They're still 11-win team. There's a lot of teams in the league that would love to be in the position the Packers are in right now. So, be angry. I get it, but this is an easy loss to get over because they're clearly not as good as the Eagles, and they weren't in that game yesterday, which is really frustrating. But bigger picture, I think you still got to be really optimistic about what this team and what Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur can be down the line, but they do have to improve, certainly.
Yeah. They've got to. I don't know what it is. I mean, honestly, one of my comments was that LaFleur needs leadership training. I mean, I don't know if there's some kind of transition he needs to make from going from being kind of like this one of the guys, players coach type dudes to being kind of the, I don't know, like a hard ass that holds people accountable, man. I mean, there needs to be an element of respect with your coach, and I just don't feel like LaFleur commands that. And I'm not saying that he's lost the locker room, because I certainly don't believe that's true. I think that this team loves that guy, but I don't think that they have enough fear of him, right? Like, think about Belichick, man. Like, you just sit there and have a conversation with that guy in his face. You're just like, gosh, I just can't even read you. Are you okay? Are you mad? Like, what's, I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, he commands respect. And like, when you listen to former Patriots talk about Belichick in the Patriot way, it just commands respect. It worked. And LaFleur, I just don't feel like he's commanding that respect at this point. Like, guys aren't afraid to make mistakes with him. You know what I mean?
I get you. But Belichick, it's been a long time since that's worked for Belichick. And those players were happy that he was not there anymore. Brady couldn't wait to get away from him.
Well, and I'm not saying like Belichick, but right, but he needs more of that flavor.
There needs to be more accountability. And and one of the things, and I think this was earlier in the year, where they were having some unnecessary roughness penalties, and he came out and said, "We take this seriously, and these guys are going to do this. They're going to stand on the sideline next to me watching the game." Okay, but do we really believe that? Like it was still a thing. We saw it yesterday. I think the one was kind of a crap call on the sidelines, going out of bounds. But then TJ Slayton's late play was idiotic, where he had to take a late unnecessary roughness penalty. Like it's that kind of stuff, and it continues to show up in these types of games. Yeah, I think he's not ever going to be a hard ass kind of coach, and I think that's fine. I don't think modern players respond to that kind of stuff anymore, but there needs to be more accountability. And I think for me, it's who on the staff or in the building like is going to go to him and like really, I don't want to say hold him to the fire, but like, hey, like you really need to like, this is what you're doing wrong, or this is what you really need to improve on. We need to improve on the team. Here's the like who's going to that? Like I know Bisaccia is the assistant head coach and he speaks high, but goddamn, Bisaccia's unit's terrible year after. Like he shouldn't even be there, and I don't know. Like there needs to be some accountability of the coach beyond just him saying, "Yeah, we're gonna look at things in the off season, and there are gonna be projects and stuff like that." But like, who's showing you the way? Like, who's holding you accountable for these continued mistakes that you make week in and week out? And then you also got to hold your players accountable, because enough is enough. Enough should have been enough, a while ago after the loss, the first loss to Detroit. But you go in and play them again, and you do a lot of the same things. Then you play the Vikings a couple weeks later and do the same things. And then you like, what's changing? And at this point, they need better accountability from their head coach and from their locker room. But yeah, I think I'm still a big believer in Matt. I think he's a good head coach. I just think there's some things that he can change that can get more out of these guys. And part of that I think is going to come from player leadership as well.
Yeah.
That can help within the locker room. And I think they, with McKinney and Jacobs, those guys were new to the team, but you can see what they've brought and the attitude they brought and play with, and how highly everybody speaks of them with their work ethic and what they do off the field. And we see how good they are on the field. So,
right.
Yeah, there needs to be improvement there. There needs to be that internal improvement.
Yeah. See, we got some fun comments coming into here. And we're going to get to some. We can't get to all your comments, but appreciate y'all. Keep that chatter up. Fun one here. Ian, shout out to you. He says, Miles, what's up, brother? Would have won if we played higher before the game by Creed. Arms wide open. Love it. Love it. We need a little bit more Creed here, guys. A little bit more energy. But anyway, no, so it's tough for me because the natural inclination is for everybody to start the team building conversation. And I think that we have to give coaches and players, everybody that's talking to the media, the credit, that they're just trying to get away with what they can, right? Like they're not coming out here to tell you the whole story of the day. They're just trying to fulfill a media obligation, right? So once they do, it's done. So they're going to say word salad and they're going to say blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And then they move on. So yeah, I mean, this whole, we've got to be better and all that kind of stuff. I'm done hearing that. And the thing that really gets under my skin is we've seen good things from LaFleur. To your point, we've seen him do things where you're like, dang, like, that was a good leadership move. That was a good coaching move. Like we saw great play calls from him earlier this season, man. We were loving some of these play calls we were getting from. Now I'm like, what? Why does it look like the 8-year-old took the controller from you in Madden, dude? Like, I don't get it. Why? What happened? And I know I've got my theory. My theory that's on fire again, but we won't get there yet.
Yeah, I know who you're gonna blame, but look, I think a lot of it started with when Jordan Love was hurt. They took out under center play action. They took out bootlegs. They were worried about, and rightfully so, his mobility and stuff like that. Since he's been back and healthy, or as healthy as he's been, I'm not sure why we've seen less play action than we have in the past. They were a really good play action team last year. He was a really good play action quarterback. We've seen a lot less of that. We've seen less under center. We've seen him use his legs. Jordan use his legs less. I don't know, and they just haven't seemed like they've had an answer. And And I feel like they've also, maybe playing into it, were the early season interceptions. Like, did they dial some things back because they didn't want him taking some of the risks in the middle of the field or down the field that he was? Did Jordan become a little gun shy, pulling the trigger on some of those throws?
You
Like,
might
is
have.
there a confident thing? Like, I
Yeah.
think it all kind of plays together. But yeah, like I think the offensive part of it's the team, how the teams are playing you. And I also think they're adjusting to being a more of a run first team, more of a power running team. But you got to be able to mix it and match it. And if anything, having a better running game should help you. It should help your play action game. And for some reason, they've kind of gone away from those things. I also don't think, and we've talked about this a million times, is like, I don't think they give Jordan Love enough easy throws to complete, especially early in the game.
You can't say that
And
louder. Just say it again. Say it again. Say it
they
again.
do not help their quarterback out early in the game to get into a rhythm with easy throws. And like, you have Tucker Kraft, you have Jaden Reed, you have Josh Jacobs in the passing game. You don't need to throw it downfield. Dump it off for 2 yards and let those guys do all the work and get you the yak and get you positive yards. Get your quarterback into a rhythm. And then those underneath throws, start sucking up the safeties, and then you can take your shots downfield that you want to take. Just get him into a rhythm and get him comfortable. And again,
Absolutely.
yesterday, they didn't use Jacobs in the passing game until it was well into the second half. And you saw him make a couple big gains once they got the ball in his hands out of the backfield. Like, the dude can catch the ball and be a weapon. But for whatever reason, that's been a recurring thing in these bigger games. Like, they kind of forget about him in the passing game. They get him the ball in the run game, still fine. But, like, use him in multiple ways, and just make it easier for your quarterback. And I don't know. They struggle to do that for whatever reason, and where the quarterback doesn't doesn't want to throw those easier throws. Maybe he's looking down the field more. I don't know, but it just seems like everything's so hard for them in these bigger games. Like, they just make it harder on themselves. They shoot themselves in the foot, but everything's a struggle where it's like, just take the easy gains.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just move the ball ahead. If you got to take a long drive, take a long drive, but just easy gains. Like, you don't have to get it all in one shot down the field.
And that's the thing, is there's this belief that they do, it seems like. There's this belief that if we take a 30-yard shot on the first play of this drive, that it'll loosen the defense up and then we can do what we want to do. It's like, dadgummit, dude, like, you've tried that. It does not work. Stop it. I go back to, we know, and a lot, if you're listening, you work for some corporation, too, you're surrounded by analysts who analyze data because executives want confirmation that they're making the right decision. So if you're a play caller, an executive, you're going to analyze the data to see what works and what doesn't. And it just doesn't seem like that's happening. It's like, man, if you are doing something that consistently just doesn't work, stop it. Stop. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, what I want you to do, I just don't want you to do that. Cut it out. These bombs on first down is just stupid. And this is the part that gets under my skin so much, is, again, we've seen brilliance from LaFleur, and then we see just complete boneheaded BS. Like, why is there such a big range from this one person, unless there's another person involved? But I do want to at least, get to one of the comments that I've been trying to get back to. Our buddy Chris N. Good to see you, Chris. Glad you're with us tonight, man. It says Miles is MLF qualified to keep his job.
Come on.
Yes. Like,
the Flyer and the LaFleur stuff is just ridiculous.
Yes.
Like, I get people
Totally
are
ridiculous.
angry, but come on. Like, look at the dude's record and what he's done. And,
Yes.
coming and dealing with Aaron Rodgers and all that ego and everything that entailed, and then managing it and getting as far as they've gone, winning as many games as they did, and now developing another quarterback. Like, come on. He's one of the better head coaches. He's one of the better play callers in the NFL. And I know we're putting
when
a
he
lot of
wants
blame.
to be.
We're putting a lot of blame on him tonight. But that's because they had an inconsistent season, and he can be better. So, we expect more, and we know he can be better. But yeah, I mean, are you kidding me? He's more qualified. He's one of the best head coaches in football. Like, get out of here with this stuff. Like, nope. People that want him fired or on the hot seat, like, step back for a minute and just relax and take a deep breath and see where this team is. And look
No.
around. If you really think like you're going to get better, look around the league at some of the other head coaches.
Right.
It's a joke, some of these guys.
Now, what I will say is I do want his seat to heat up. I don't want that to be a hot seat, but I want him to know that it's capable of warming up. And I'm getting a little feeling that there's a little complacency there. I will say this. Matt LaFleur is absolutely capable or qualified to keep his job. What he could do to maybe damage that a little bit is continue the insanity on offense. And I really want to stick to the definition of insanity for a minute. It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Either the offensive coordinator position matters or it doesn't. It's either real or it's not. You guys decide. But if Matt LaFleur is the offensive coordinator, that means that Stenavich is not. And that the offensive coordinator position that he holds is not real. I don't believe that because that seems pretty silly to me. Which means his job is real, and which means he has a hand in the performance of this offense. I think what really needs to be examined is how much of a hand he's had, especially in these last 3 weeks, because it really feels like the offense, the play calling, just the entire design has gone down the toilet. Like Jordan Love does not look good over the last 3 weeks. His decision making looks poor. You hit the nail on the head, Tim. They're not designing plays for him to get into a rhythm. There's no high percentage plays until it's too late. It's all unorganized. It's all chaotic. It all looks like firing from the hip. It all looks emotional, and it all looks very amateur. And that, to me, points to somebody who doesn't have experience as being an offensive coordinator until now. And that's what I would like to say is, again, the position's real or it's not, and it matters or it doesn't. I think it does. And in saying that, he needs to go find the Jeff Hafley equivalent of an offensive coordinator. He absolutely needs a more competent offensive coordinator who knows how to build an offense, run an offense, scheme an offense, and beat a defense. And he needs better position players better position coaches in that offense, except for Tom Clements. He stays forever. But
wait a second. Whoa. So if you're going to rip Stenavich and Jordan Love's not playing well and his mechanics stink, which we both agree on, isn't that your quarterback's coach?
I didn't say he's free of accountability, but he definitely stays forever because of the body of work. The thing is,
no,
who holds the quarterback coach accountable?
The head coach. The head coach.
Are
you
you sure it's not
the
offensive coordinator?
The head coach holds all the coaches accountable.
Okay,
he's the guy that hires them. He should be holding the special teams. If you want to fire a coordinator, fire the special teams.
Hey, Bisaccia is not free from this. He's up too.
So you can't just rip Stenavich when it's not going well and say it's Stenovich's fault. He was getting praise early in the year because he was designing those running plays.
I was not praising him. I was saying, all right,
you weren't praising him.
I was saying it looks good, fine. I was not saying that I think he's responsible for it.
Matt LaFleur was praising him, said he was responsible for the running game, the running system that they installed with Malik Willis.
Great. What about the passing game?
I get it. This is Matt LaFleur's offense. You bring in another coordinator, it's not going to be their Jeff Hafley because Jeff Hafley runs the defense. He calls the defense. The next guy that's going to come in is going to run the offense the way Matt LaFleur wants it run, why Matt LaFleur calls the plays. Unless you don't want Matt LaFleur calling plays, which I still want him calling plays.
I think I do, but if last 2 weeks are an indication, I don't. It was terrible.
I can tell you what's going to – if he gives up play calling, at some point during the season, he will take it back just like McCarthy does. It's in his blood. It's what he does. That's his thing. He's not – I would be shocked if he gives it up, and I don't think he should give it up.
I agree. I don't necessarily want him to give it up, but I want the problem. Then there's a very obvious problem that has been very apparent, especially the last 3 weeks, probably existed before. I want it solved, man. I don't feel like LaFleur is in a hurry to solve it because I think he's more interested in helping his buddies.
I don't think that's it. I think he's just struggling right now to find the answers. And like Stenavich is more involved in the run game. And I think their offensive line was pretty good this year. They had a tough game against Philadelphia. A lot of that was because they lost Elton Jenkins very early.
Fair enough.
But they had a rough game, and I think the run game has been really good this year, and they give a lot of credit to Stenovich and Luke Buckus for that. They have a pass game coordinator. It's Jason Vrabel.
Yeah, he can go. I'm not a fan.
I don't know. The receivers haven't developed this year. I mean, like, I don't want to get in the receiver debate tonight, but I am very much more on the they need a guy. They need their guys to improve. Number one, their internal guys to improve, and we haven't seen it. And now 2 of those guys are through 3 seasons, and the other 2 are through 2. Like, it's time. It's beyond time, I think. There's injury issues that play into that for next season as well. Again, I don't want to get into receivers, but that's another big debate that's going on.
Maybe next week, huh?
Yeah. We got. Let's not kill all of our topics here in one night. But I'm with you. Like, it's rough in the passing game. I don't know enough about what Stenovich is doing behind the scenes to be like, yeah, it's Stenovich's fault. He doesn't call the plays. We could, if he was, we know to go there. And I'm not saying we absolve him of blame. I don't think you can. I think the finger pointing goes to LaFleur. It is his offense, his scheme. He designs it. He calls it. Nothing on his call sheet gets called in that game without him approving it and signing off on it. It starts with him. If they come and they make a change there and they want to shake it up, they need a new voice. Fine. We'll see what they do. Maybe it makes a big impact. Maybe it doesn't. But, like, I think we need to slow down with firing people right now because, like, just you can't always turn around and fire somebody when things aren't going well. And I'm not just saying that towards you. I know you get that. But, I mean, I'm just talking to Packers nation right now. Like, calm down. Like, we don't need to fire everybody right now. Like, that doesn't work either, so there's a lot of things to be figured out, especially primarily with the passing game and what has happened there. But I think there's just a lot of different things that played into it that caused that problem. And if we
I hear you. I mean, consistency is important. And I certainly am not trying to fire everyone or burn it down, so to speak. But I've had grievances with this offensive coordinator specifically going back to the beginning of the 2023 season, even before that. But I have been complaining about this, and it's just a theory, right? I don't have real good hard evidence of what's actually happening behind the scenes. But I do think that there's a stark difference between the way the players on offense have responded to whoever their leader is, whether it's Stenovich or LaFleur, and the way that the players on defense have responded to Hafley, right? And I was talking about having that kind of fearful respect, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It needs to be a certain level of respect, and I think Hafley has achieved that through just earning the respect of saying, like, hey guys, here's what I think you should do. And to, you look at the body of work, it's worked, right? This season, they've been better, right? We can say that. Top 10 defense. You got McKinney out there getting all the interceptions, right? Like, the defense played well. And I think it's easy for them and us to see that there's still room for them to grow, right? I mean, there's definitely some stability to be found at the linebacker position. I mean, we don't need to get into the diagnostics of the entire thing, but I want to see that on the offense. They have a ton of talent on offense. We've seen the talent on offense. We've seen it play all different points. I mean, last season, this season, you look at Wicks, everybody was super up on Wicks, and he had a disappointing season. I mean, just across the board, they've got talent on offense, and they're not getting the most out of it. And that's what I want to see, is I want to see somebody who can do that. And I don't think Stenovich is the guy. I just don't, right? And again, we can debate about what the role of the offensive coordinator is in this offense, but to some extent, that's the offensive leader, right? Whether it's entirely the offensive leader or not, he is some extent the offensive leader. And I don't see him as the guy. I don't know. You don't hear these guys talking about Stenovich the way you hear the guys talk about Hafley. It's just, that's how I see it.
I think it might be time, or it might be interesting if they could do something like this to bring in another coach from outside, give him whatever title you want, senior offensive assistant or whatever, somebody with some experience that could come in here and just look at what they do and like give fresh eyes to it, you know, from a preparation, a play calling, and adjustment perspective, you know, how you get your team ready for these games, like what the scripts are as far as play calling, like all that stuff, and just, you know, give fresh perspective on it to LaFleur, you know, from outside, because Vrabel and Stanovich and Butkus, those guys have been with LaFleur for a while. So it's like kind of the same things. And I'm not saying they can't bring fresh ideas or new things. Maybe they do. Certainly some of the run things were new this year, which was awesome. But, you know, it might make sense to bring in somebody from the outside to take a look at it.
Yeah, you know, there's all sorts of ways they could approach it. That'd be, you know, like a consultant situation. I think that'd be a great idea. You know, I just hope they do something, right? Like, don't sit back like you did for 3 years with the defense and Joe Barry, right? For 3 years, we could pretty much, I mean, after the first year, there was reason for hope, but we could really see the issues, right? And we kept hoping for things to get better or to change. I just don't want to see any more of that. If you know there's a problem on offense, do something to fix it. And if you know that your guys are the guys, then do whatever you need to do to train them to be better at being the guys. If they need leadership training, get them leadership training. If they need offensive schematics training, send them to all the workshops, right? Like, bring in all the gurus. I don't like you've got the access to do that these days. Go do go find all the college coaches that have the trendy systems that they're trying out. Like, go do different things and try it if these are your guys. I mean, just something. Show me signs of there's an issue. Here's we're trying to fix it. You know, instead of, well, I don't know, we just got to do it better next time. I mean, as a person who lives in the Dallas area, I heard that from Jason Garrett for 10 years, and I watched the Cowboys go 8-8 for 10 years. Don't do that. For the love of God, please do not just sit there and go, well, I guess we got to get better. Every time that you just shoot yourself in the foot over and over and over again, please just show me something different. That's what I'm begging for. I'll just say it that. Now,
I think they will. No, there's a solution to your Adam Stanovich problem. The Bears want to interview him for their head coaching job. So, you know, there you go. He might be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears.
I don't think we're that lucky. The Bears, they're going to bear, man. I gotta love it.
It might be Big Mike. Big Mike's going to get interviewed.
Of teams that are going to do their thing, it looks like the Vikings have shown their fraudulent side. Is this final?
No, it's might as well be over. Oh no, I'm sorry, it is final. Yeah, 27-9. Rams pounded them.
Vikings.
Yeah,
all that smack they talked, and now it's just another one of those disappointing Viking seasons again that nobody cares about.
It's, you know, and it's so that's frustrating because Darnold the last 2 weeks against the Lions and Rams, he was terrible. He's under a lot of pressure. That, you know, the Lions blitzed him relentlessly, but man, he was seeing, it was like back with the Jets, he was seeing ghosts. Like holding the ball tonight, taking sacks, and some of the throws against the Lions, he was just sailing them all over the field. He had some guys open, and he just wouldn't cut it loose. Like, he's a completely different quarterback than the quarterback we saw, you know, 3 weeks ago when we played him, of course, when he was red hot. Yeah, so, but it's nice the Vikings are out too.
I think that the Vikings won their Super Bowl after they beat the Packers a couple weeks ago. I mean, that celebration in the locker room, and you know, O'Connell standing there like a proud papa. Mm-hmm. They look like they did it, man. So, oh well, I guess that's that peak energy. You gotta try to avoid that. Wrong time. Real quick, something I do want to touch on, and we can have some fun with this, and this doesn't have to be a serious thing, but because there's really nothing to go off of. I'll say, I'm not buying into the Jair Alexander comments from earlier today. I think he is trolling the GB media here. He has trolled the media in the past with an Instagram post. I don't know if you guys remember that. I think it was after the 22 season, where it looked like he was saying goodbye, and then his last picture on that was a very, very obviously confirming the troll. The guy did everything he could to get back this season. He went on IR so late because he was trying to get back, not because he just wanted to hang around and not be on IR. If he didn't want to be on the field, he would have gone on IR way earlier. So I would feel a certain way about that if I was putting my body on the line and trying as hard as I could to play for this team, and all the media did was talk shit about me and talk about how I don't care about this team. So I think that was his middle finger to the GB media for the way they've treated him all season. Just my prediction. I just don't see the attitude problem that everybody else sees. You know, the team, the coaches, the players, everybody's only said good things about him. When there's an attitude problem, we see what that looks like. It looks like Devondre Campbell, right? Like that's what an attitude problem looks like. And that played out in full with the 49ers. Now, granted, I was hoping for the best from that guy back in the day. You just haven't seen the smoke from that. It's short of him just not being able to get on the field because he's got real injuries. I don't see it. I don't know. What do you see?
Yeah, I think there's something there. I still think there's something going on. The injury situation was kind of weird. Like, I agree, he wanted to get on the field. The fact he was practicing and not getting cleared for games, and then he shuts it, not him shutting it down, but they decide he needed surgery. Something's weird in there. I don't think we have the full picture of what's going on. Besides all that, I don't think he's back. I'd be really surprised if they bring him back next year. He's missed way too many games, and the contract's too high. Like, the Packers just don't keep guys like this, you know, that are missing this many games. You know, he played 7 games this year. He's, you know, played, I think, fewer than 50% over the last 2 or 3 years, whatever it is, making a lot of money. Like, I can't see them bringing him back. If everything's okay behind the scenes and internally, maybe they go to him and offer, like, you know, a little bit of a pay cut where he can earn the money back and incentives for playing time, maybe. But I would be really surprised if he's back. I think they're going to cut him, or, you know, probably try to trade him. And I don't know if they'll get anything for him because of this contract. But yeah, I'd be really surprised if he's back next season.
Well, I think it'll be telling what they do with him. If they cut him, there's probably some serious medical issues, because there's nothing about this guy that, I mean, at least right now, that we've shown that he can't be back for next season. So you got to assume that he should be on track to play next season. And if he is, if the Packers don't want him, somebody else wants him. Like, he's still a premier cornerback in this league when he's on the field.
Yeah, he won't be out of the league. I just think they can't count on him. There's just been, ever since he hurt his shoulder in 2021, it's just been one injury after another.
Yeah.
And they don't like to keep guys like that. I mean, they've shown that they just won't let guys hang around. Bakhtiari, I know, but that was one injury to his knee, and his contract made it a little bit more complicated because he had just signed a big contract to move on as quickly. But I know they gave him chances, but that was Bakhtiari. It was a different situation. I would be really surprised if he's back. And regardless, and we'll get into this in the future, whether he's back or not, they need multiple cornerbacks on this roster. Like, I think even if he is back, you pretend like he's not there and you just stack up on corners. So we'll get into that another time. But
we got a whole offseason to talk team building, but that was something that came out today. I thought it was worth commenting on. You know, I'm a Jair believer, man. I like that guy. I like the energy that he brings when he is on the field, and I think he probably does a pretty good job in the locker room too with the guys. So he's just one of those guys that I want in the locker room. But that's my own bias. That's fine. I can't argue with you with the idea that the Packers just don't pay guys like that. You're right. I mean, they gave Bakhtiari everything they could, and they had to, you know, make the decision, and they did. And I could see something similar to that playing out with Jair, that it's like maybe he's got injury complications through the offseason, and it's just like, dude, we have to move on. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think it'll be telling what actually, you know, how they actually go down. Because if they're going to move on from him and they cut him, man, that would just really surprise me. That would mean that there's not as much value around the league for him, which He's still young. I that would just be surprising to me. I would think that teams would take a gamble on him. And even if it's a 7th round pick, Goot's going to trade him if he can trade him. He's not going to just cut him just for the sake of cutting him.
Yeah, I mean, they got a 7th round pick for Preston. And
yeah, I mean, he's going to take what he can get.
He didn't even play for that much for the Steelers. He was a scratch in the playoff game. So, yeah, maybe. I mean, it'd be nice if they could get something for him, but we'll see.
We'll see. That's like I said, we got a whole offseason for it. That's what the offseason's for. A lot of speculation, a lot of team building conversation. Unfortunately, we're there now, and we've got to wait several months until we get to see real Packers football again. But that's okay. You know, we're going to make it through. You guys hang with us for the offseason. We're going to have a good time. We're gonna get into some things. We got the Shrine Bowl coming up here soon that we're going to do a little participating in. So stay tuned for that. But we're going to get into this new draft class. It seems like there's going to be some decent offseason activity for the Packers. They've got cap room. They've got assets. They've got room to build here. So, you know, when we all get emotional, we get in our feels, we get upset about these losses. It's easy to hit that button that says burn it down because it just feels so stinking good to say that sometimes. But in reality, you got a really, really, really good foundation, especially just talent, pure talent. But the chemistry is there. You see that through guys like Jacobs and McKinney, and you see that Jacobs wants to recruit guys to this team. There's a great foundation here. They've got assets to add to it. This team could be a lot of fun to watch in 2025. Like, we could really be having a lot of fun talking about training camp and the things that they could do. So, of course, we can be in our feels. We can be upset about losing. We can be upset about how they lost, all those things, but we're going to keep cheering on the Pack. We're going to stick with them through the offseason. We're going to have some fun thinking about winning the Super Bowl in 2025. Unfortunately, it won't be in New Orleans. That was really, I was excited for that whole circle. You know, they won in 96 in New Orleans, but oh well. Tim, any final thoughts on the 2024 season here, sir?
Wish it would have went a lot differently than it did. You know, I think we did see improvement, and it's really nice to have a defensive coordinator who knows what the hell he's doing. So I'm optimistic.
Here. Let's end on a high note like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We got a defense, y'all.
Salute to the defense. If I would have told you before the season started that Jair would play 7 games, they'd have a first-year defensive coordinator with a new system. They get 7 games out of Jair. Kenny Clark would be invisible for most of the year. Rashawn Gary would be a disappointment. We would have been sitting here like, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Instead, they have a top 10 defense. So, and they don't have the right pieces yet. Like, give Hafley some more pieces to work with, and they're going to. Yeah, I'm really optimistic about Jeff Hafley, the job he did, and what they can do in the future there. So, like, let's end on a high note. There's plenty to look forward to in the future with the Packers. As disappointing as this season ended up being at the end, there's a lot to look forward to. Absolutely.
Can't agree more with that. The future's bright. That's why we wear the sunglasses here. Got to protect from the brightness. But no, we love y'all listeners, subscribers. Thank y'all for hanging out with us through this season, through last season. We got 2 seasons on this podcast in the books, Tim. Look at that, man. That's pretty cool.
Look at us.
Hang with us through this offseason. We're going to get it through it together. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about all the different things. And, you know, we're going to help the Packers build this team for 2025. You know, we're going to put the good energy out there. And have some fun while we're doing it. So y'all come back and see us next week, Monday night, 9:30 p.m., streaming live. And most importantly, spike that like button if you guys enjoy this episode. Please follow us on all the socials and subscribe to the Packers Talk YouTube channel. Head on over there right now, youtube.com, Packers Talk. Hit that little subscribe button, hit the bell next to it, and that'll remind you that we're here talking Pack every week, Monday night, 9:30 p.m., having fun with y'all, and just counting down to the days to the next Super Bowl win for the Pack, man. That's all there is to it. So we will see y'all next week, Packers fans. Go, Pack, go!